roll, please.
John Aldred,
Here.
Francis Bach,
Here.
Brian Burns,
Here.
Del Cullen,
Here.
Richard Drew,
Here.
James Grimes,
Here.
Susan McGraw-Keeler, Bill Taylor,
Here.
Susan Vorpal.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll start with the public portion. Mike Bikini is here to give us a report on the resurgence of the river otter.
And then, John, is there a little clicker for forward?
Use the mouse. You can put it up on there.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm just going to give a brief talk about the river otter situation on Long Island in general, and I thought I'd start out with a quick overview of their natural history, and then get into what happened to them and where we're at today. And by the way, before I start, this is probably the best photo of otters on Long Island. This is in the Nisququogue River, and taken by Joe Kelly. And I get a lot of emails and phone calls about otter sightings, and it's very easy to confuse muskrat with otter when they're in the water. You know, on land, forget it, it's totally different, but in the water, swimming along, they all have their nose, eyes, and ears right in the same plane so that they can be real low down in the water and use their senses. But the otters will do this periscoping. They're very curious, and the muskrat will just stay flat in the water. Big difference. Definitely we'll do this periscoping at some point. Okay, so see if this, all right.
I think you can just, Mike, you can either click on the next slide on the left, or you could probably go to slideshow.
Oh, I see, go
and,
like this.
Then it'll just click to the next slide as you click the mouse.
From the beginning, if you click on it, yep. And then you should be able to just kind of click in this area every time as you go.
Okay, there we go, okay. So, so the river otter is about 36 to 48 inches from the nose to the tip of the tail. It's in the weasel family, the mustelids. It's very short legs. And the tail is really, it weighs around 12 to 25 pounds, in that range. And the tail is really unusual. There's nothing really like it in North America. It has this broadest where it's attached to the hind part of the body. And this is looking at the bottom of the tail, which is flat. But if you look at the tail in cross section, it's like a flattened triangle. And they put both hind feet, which are webbed, on either side of the tail, and to really get going, they'll do a dolphin motion, sort of a dolphin kick, yeah.
That's the bottom of the tail as if it's on its back
Yeah,
right now?
so no, it's right, it's on its back, yeah. Yeah, so you're looking at the bottom of the tail. And yeah, they can go 7 miles an hour as, for long distance. So they're good swimmers. Whoop. All right.
Just hit next. Hit next.
So it's a right click, I guess, okay.
That's not river otter.
So I just threw this in because river otters are really semi-aquatic. This is a marine mammal, seal, and the river otter is a trade-off. This has really short fur. The river otter has longer fur, which is going to slow it down, but it's also super dense. And it's actually got the densest fur of any mammal in North America other than the sea otter, which is on the West Coast. And it obviously doesn't have blubber because it spends 75% of its time on land to move around. They'll travel from one pond to another watershed. They'll travel over a mile overland. All right. Yeah, when I was applying for a grant to look at the Fisher's Island situation that I'll mention a little later, I got a call from one of the board members, said, why would we support you to study river otters on Fisher's Island? We don't have any rivers. Yeah, that's a good question. So river otters, their habitat, they'll use rivers, this is a Nissequogue, they'll use fresh and saltwater ponds, and they spend a lot of time in the estuary. The main thing with them, with how they can, they're best suited to catch fish and crab prey, is in generally shallow waters, unlike the seal, which can be further offshore. And fish is their, 90% of their diet. This is an American eel, and this is Lake Marion near Greenport. And they also eat a lot of crab. So when I started the survey in 2008, I had these distinct areas where there were clusters of otter sign. And I wanted to bring this up, and I'll get into this a little bit later as well, but this would be about the area of a single otter's home range. They have huge home ranges. They're not territorial. They're very social, and they often travel together. And so Greenport, Shelter Island, and that's Scoy Pond and Northwest Harbor could be just a single otter. And as I said, they're very sociable. In coastal situations, the males will get together, up to 6 to 8 males, and they'll actually do cooperative hunting. They'll herd schools of fish into shallow water where they're more easily caught. They have a very complicated reproductive system. They have 2 to 3 young that are born in early March, and they stay with the mom for 10 to 12 months, so almost a full year. And they also have delayed implantation, which is a very unusual reproductive strategy. So what's the deal with otters? They're excellent water quality beacons because they're non-migratory, top of the food pyramid, and have an aquatic diet. They actually reflect the health of the watersheds that they live in. Unlike the eagle and the osprey, that'll move around much more. The osprey is migratory. So the DEC, when I started the study, I was talking to people upstate at Hale Creek Station, and I found out that they have a register, a database of all the watersheds in the state of New York that have otters, and they take tissue samples. And they used that database, for example, when they were cleaning up the GE spill in the Hudson River. They wanted to see if their remediation efforts were successful in keeping the stuff from getting resuspended and entering the food chain. They had no data from Long Island because the Stony Brook office didn't know that that was happening. Actually, the Stony Brook office in 2008 didn't know anything about otters on Long Island, the distribution, if we had breeding pairs or what. So part of the study in 2008 was to get the DEC, the local DEC regional office, to collect roadkills and start getting a database for Long Island. Okay, so what happened to river otters? The fur trade, which started in the late 1500s and went to the mid-1800s, that was unregulated trapping and hunting, and it decimated a lot of things, including the river otter. But because the otter had the densest fur of any fur bearer other than the sea otter on the west coast, that was the gold standard for the fur trade. So by 1900, they were extirpated from 11 states and Prince Edward Island in Canada. And since the 1970s, 22 states implemented river otter reintroductions. In terms of Long Island, Decay, a famous naturalist, wrote in 1842 that it had become extirpated on Long Island and Staten Island by that time. Probably a lot earlier, but that's when he was doing his work. Connor, by the way, The Mammals of Long Island, this was published in 1971. The field work was done in the 1960s. And he didn't find any evidence of otters on Long Island. back then. And just as an aside, I've been talking to the state zoologist, Matt, one of them anyway, Matt Schlesinger, and we want to, in the next 3 or 4 years, replicate Connor's work and see what's gone on, because this is 60 years old now. Okay, for New York State, the river otter, there was a remnant population in 1900 centered in the Adirondack Park. And in 1939, they did a 9-year moratorium on hunting and trapping of otters. That was what was not called the DEC back then, but became the DEC. So in 1990, they had spread through the Hudson River watershed and a little bit west of that. And between 1995 and 2000, they reintroduced 279 river otters into the western part of the state to fast-track their recolonization of that area. And at that point, really nothing was known about Long Island. So this is, some of us feel that this is another example of the DEC for the Long Island region. You know, we don't get the attention that they get elsewhere in the state. So Long Island, in order to recolonize Long Island, that's a real problem for a lot of species. So we have bobcat in New Jersey, we have bobcat in Westchester, we have them in Connecticut. They were once found on Long Island. It's a real challenge. It's an island, and the closest point to the mainland is New York City. So there's a number of species that have been extirpated here that are probably not going to come back without a reintroduction. The river otter, actually, as I said, it swims 7 miles an hour. It can do that for a prolonged period. So it can easily make the crossing from the widest point of the sound from robust populations in Connecticut. However, they're predisposed not to do open water crossings of more than about 7 kilometers. And I think this has to do with their ability to catch fish in shallower water. And it might be that they can't sense land beyond that point. So that limits the reintroduction to the west end of Long Island Sound, coming into Nassau County. This would be like Pelham Bay Park, Westchester area. And there was a question in my mind whether or not it could use the Fisher's Island, Great Gull Island, Plum Island archipelago to reach Orient. Anyway, how do we survey for otters and determine where they are? Sightings isn't going to work because they're very nocturnal and they have those huge home ranges, so that's really not a feasible way to do it. Doing a tracking survey on Long Island where you don't have reliable snow cover is also problematic. So the way to go really is to do a latrine survey. And I'll talk a little bit about that. The latrine is where they leave their scat and some other types of sign, but the most obvious sign is their scat. They also do, when they come out of the water, they roll around to dry off. They scrape the leaves away where they're going to leave their scat and scent. And so when you're paddling along a waterway, it really jumps out at you. You have the lowbush blueberry and huckleberry area, and leaf litter, and all of a sudden there's a big bare spot. And they're always within a couple meters of the water. So it's actually pretty easy to do a survey. You want to look at points of land, small islands, where they have to get out of the water to get around an obstruction and continue down the waterway. And in this case, this is a little narrow peninsula up in Southold. And you can barely make it out, but there's fresh water over here, fresh water over here. It's a shortcut. Instead of going all the way around the point, they can cut right across. And they leave their sign there. So Long Pond Greenbelt, this is Long Pond, Little Long Pond. I surveyed this last year, and here's the shortest distance between Long Pond and Little Long Pond. And there's a latrine here and a latrine here. Latrines on these points of land. This is a wooded hummock, and then this is a latrine where they come out of the water and they head over to Deer Drink, and from Deer Drink there's actually a ditch that they can swim through to get into Crooked Pond. So this is a new site in the 2018 survey.
Why do they leave their scat exposed like that?
So they're not territorial, it's a good question, they're not territorial. And to avoid conflicts with one another, we think that they're communicating with the latrines. So this isn't where they hang out during the day when they're not fishing. As I did a camera study, and they're there for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. They do that thing and then they're gone. So the hypothesis is that they're communicating with one another. The fishing's good here. Check out the crayfish. Check out the blue crabs maybe, and eventually when they get down to Sag Pond. Or, you know, I don't want to be bothered, you know, move on, come back another time. They're always moving around. They never spend more than, except with the females when they're having their young in the spring, they generally stay in one place for maybe 2 or 3 days and then they move on. So this shows you, the other good thing about the Latrine Survey is the evidence is there for quite a long time. So this is fresh scat with this greenish substance, fish scales and fish bones. Turns like a little grayish color and then eventually bleaches out. So that could be there for as long as a month, 5 weeks. And this is very fresh crayfish scat. And it's hard to tell if this is crayfish. If you took this home and rinsed it through a strainer, you could see the little parts of the shell and whatnot. But this is a giveaway here, these hard structures, which might look like a seed. So you might think, no, this has got to be an omnivore. It's easy to confuse raccoon scat with otter scat. These are actually gastroliths, which are structures in the stomach of crayfish, and when they molt, when they're getting ready to molt, they pull the calcium into these structures so that they can recalcify quicker than taking it right out of the water column. And this is a photo of, I get a lot of photos of raccoon tracks. This is actually river otter. This is actually Northwest Creek, the beach. It's Stratton Beach, I think. The inside where the boat mooring is. And this is a left hind foot, it's a bigger foot, and it's 4 toes, and then the 5th toe is a little drop down and off to the side. And this is a left front, smaller. And this is a right front and a right rear. And the rear, again, the dropped inner toe. And as, compared to raccoon tracks, which really look more like a human hand in a way, more fingery. And every otter site on Long Island has raccoons going through every night. So you have to be careful with that. Let's see. Got a couple quick videos here of what they do. This is a latrine site on the Nissaquag River. Actually, it's Sunken Meadow Lagoon area. So it's doing the scraping thing, which, you know, makes these sites easy to find. And this one will roll around. Another way to compact the area and make it more visible. The water's right over here. And this is up in Greenport. And this may not work. Anyway, this is, you can see there's still ice on the pond. And this is March 11th. And this is the male, and female is, I think the female is right back here. And males are noticeably larger than the female. So what's interesting about this is the female gives birth in early March, and the act of giving birth induces ovulation, so she's receptive to mate, which is a little weird because it's a possibility that the male will kill the infants if he finds them. And she can't wander too far from the infants because they're blind and helpless. So anyway, that's the way it is. And when so I retrieved this camera in early November of 2015, and on my way kayaking up here to get the camera, not knowing what was on the camera, I flushed a female and 2 young. So they were, like 6 months, 7 months old. And I realized what was going on when I got home and looked at this. So the 2008 survey, the major clusters of latrines were on the north shore of Nassau County, western Suffolk. And then there was a huge gap, and then there was a cluster of latrines over here in the east end. These 2 sites I visited several times, and they must have been transient otters. They weren't established home ranges. They were just moving through looking for suitable spots, but they never did. This was on the Browns River, and this was on the Little River in the Riverhead area, on the dam, where they're thinking about doing an alewife passage.
The empty circles are,
Those are places where I surveyed and didn't find anything.
so you thought they might be likely spots?
Yeah, they were, sometimes when you, so I look at aerial photographs and topographic maps, and I pin down if there's an otter in the area, this is where the latrine would be. But sometimes when you go out in the field, you realize that's not really a suitable site. But a lot of these were good sites, and a lot of these I filled in 10 years later on the 2018 survey. I mentioned that I was wondering what went on with Fisher's Island, and I actually found as many otter latrines on Fisher's Island as I found in 2008 on all of Long Island. So basically every place we looked on Fisher's Island had otter sign. They were using the whole island. And I'm pretty sure that that area was recolonized by otters coming over from Fisher's Island. And you probably know about the beaver. Several beavers have made it over. There was a beaver killed this April in Orient, and it was on Plum Island. They tried to kill it on Plum Island, but it got away before the guys got it. And they've been on Fisher's Island several times. I have pictures of them. Fisher's Island is a pretty cool place, by the way. It's part of Suffolk County that we don't think of. And they have breeding coyotes over there. They have had for over 10 years. And then getting the word out with what I was doing to natural resource agencies and boards like yourself, I was getting a lot of good information. There's a lot of general naturalists out there that keep track of different things. So this young pup, and I think one of the reasons why the young spend so long with their mother before they're off on their own is they have a natural curiosity, they're very playful, and they get themselves in a lot of trouble. So this guy jumped into a reflecting pool and couldn't get out, and the mother couldn't get him out either. So guy found him the next day, got him out with a net. He's probably 24 inches from the nose to the tip of the tail. These 2 guys were caught in the Lake Ronkonkoma area. One of them was caught by a nuisance trapper. They were getting in people's koi ponds, and they set traps. They caught a cottontail rabbit the first night, and an opossum the second night, a raccoon the third night. The nuisance trapper figured, well, there's one raccoon, there's more. This is in the fall. So he set the trap the 4th night, and he caught this young pup. He had to release it right there. This one's a more complicated story. It was taken to Connecticut State Park, and the kid made up this story that he saw it tangled up in some fishing line in the Connecticut River, and he untangled it and put it in a trap. You can't do that with an otter, right? He caught it at his goldfish pond on Metzger Avenue and gave a line of BS to Annie McIntyre from State Parks, and she, for some reason, went along with it, and he released it in the Connecticut River, which is a South Shore site, that we've never had otters yet. And it's also got Norm Sewell is running the new trout hatchery there, and he wasn't happy about that. And they actually, so this was a couple of years ago, and he called me Friday, and they have some remote cameras set up in the park, and they do have an otter in the park, for
Yeah,
sure.
If you have like an alewife ladder or a salmon ladder, they figure that out fast.
Yeah,
And what they do.
They're smart.
They hang out. They'll just sit there and wait for the salmon.
well, they
you know.
zeroed in, I'll show you a thing of an aerial of the Lake Ronkonkoma. They zeroed in on the easiest meal possible in the Lake Ronkonkoma, the whole watershed. Somebody's koi pond.
Yeah. But
They
it's,
almost didn't have to get wet.
but it's funny, they get to the point where they get really like lazy. They'll only eat like a small part of the salmon, and then they just go and move on to the next one.
So this is the results of the 2008, the 2018 survey. So a decade later, we did get a number of roadkills, and I thought it was going to be a real challenge for them to, they had a foothold on Long Island in 2008. I was shocked. They've colonized the whole North Shore from Glen Cove, basically, to Orient Point. They made it over to Lake Ronkonkoma, which is, they have like a sixth sense of where these lakes are that are not connected to anything. They're all over the Peconic River. This is the Red Creek area, Hubbard Creek, and they made it into the Longpine Greenbelt and Stornger's Pond. Those are all new sites that were checked very carefully in 2008, and there were no sign of otters there. Okay, so so I found out, and again, miscommunication with the biologists at Stony Brook knew I'd been doing this for 10 years, and I hear through the rumor mill that the state is doing a statewide river otter survey, and they never put me in touch with the head surveyor. And I said, I got a lot of good information on Long Island. She says, oh, well, we already did Long Island. We found 2 sites. Okay. They do a different, these are all the sites they checked, by the way. They spent hundreds of hours, but they didn't look where the otter sign would be. This river crosses a road. We'll park the car, get out, and look around on either side of the bridge. Well, they're not sites where the otters are going to get out of the water and leave any signs. So, anyway, we might do a paper comparing the 2 methodologies. But so I just wanted to end with a couple of interesting things I found. So. One winter we had a lot of snowfall, drifts were 3 to 4 feet in the Cattail Marsh, and what do the otters do to get out of the cold? Well, what the Eskimos would do, right? The Inuit, they made snow caves, and they hung out in there. Saved a lot of energy. This is Lake Ronkonkoma, and this is a county park. It's a very strange marsh ditch area. Fresh water, and I found 2 latrines in there, but it's 15, look at the development there. I don't know if you can see that from where you are. They have to cross some major roads, and they're smart. They wait till the middle of the night to move around, but what possessed the otters to move over there from the Nisqually River watershed? It's like,
Good
it's amazing.
Chinese food?
Yeah. But they didn't know about the koi pond. Somehow they knew, they must have known there was water there. Now from here,
Is it the same pair, Mike, or the same otters that are in Ronkonkoma that are making their way over to Hauppauge? Is that what you're saying?
no, these are
Right.
probably, so they would be young that disperse, and it might have been a bunch that travel together, because I said they're sociable. And they somehow ended up there, and the female had young here. She had, Apparently, according to the neighbors, they saw 4 otters, 1 big one and 3 little ones. And we saw the photo of the 1 little one in the trap. But from, what's interesting is from here, it's a short distance over to Lakeland County Park, Honeysuckle Ponds, the headwaters of the Connecticut River. So they could make it to the south shore, which I knew they would do, but they'll be there within the next 2 or 3 years, for
You
sure.
know, they like mink, do they run the young off at a certain point?
When the female is ready to have her next litter, she has to get rid of the yearlings, yeah. So the yearlings will spend a good portion of the winter with the mother, because there's a couple of little tricks they have to learn hunting under the ice. You know, it's kind of tricky. So they spend some time with her, and there's something that we're not really sure about, and that is if they're in the salt water in the winter, and it may be that they stick to fresh water in the winter, the salt is going to impact the insulation value of the fur. The European otter, which is closely related to the North American river otter, they have to have fresh water to rinse every day if they're in the salt water. There's some debate about whether that's true or not with the North American river. It's one of the things we don't know. This is coyote tracks that we found on Fisher's Island. And so I've been doing workshops. What I plan, and I've gotten actually five new sites were found by people that I trained in 2018. And I'm going to continue that in the fall. And I hope to get funding to then set up like a citizen science project where I identify key monitoring sites that have no river otters right now, but where I want to see, eventually how they get in. And it'll be mostly on the South Shore and on the South Fork as well. I mean, I haven't found anything east of Northwest Harbor. I haven't found any indication of them in 3 Mile Harbor. They're so close, though. That could happen this fall when the young disperse. And Montauk, too. And I just wanted to throw this out to you guys. I know Jim has found mink, and I found a couple weasels near the Fireplace landfill many years ago. The gray fox, you can tell from the black stripe on the tail. We thought that was extirpated on Long Island. These 4 species, the mink, the striped skunk, the long-tailed weasel, and the gray fox, are all allowed to be trapped and hunted on Long Island. We have no idea what the status and distribution of them are on Long Island. And that's something you really need to know if you're going to have a season on them. And the coyote is, we have a Long Island coyote study group set up. That's a photo of breeding of young and a female from the Bronx. But we had our first documented successful breeding in Queens in 2018. And it was near LaGuardia Airport. It was an employee parking lot with a little woods next door. And there were 9 young, a male and a female, and then a sub-adult helper. And the LaGuardia Airport officials decided that it was too dangerous, and they got all but one of the coyotes, extirpated them. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Oh, any questions?
They river otters up in Southampton?
Yeah, the red creek
Mike, could you
area.
go back to the microphone because they need it for the
Oh, for the-
TV?
Yeah, they're in, well, the Southampton includes a lot of the Peconic River, right? And Long Pond Greenbelt area. And there was an otter that followed the alewife run up into Big Fresh Pond, but it hasn't set up a home range there.
Okay, it's funny you're talking about the koi ponds. We had too big a koi for a bird to have taken out.
Mhm.
And, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm trying to map their home ranges, so they're established in that area, but the transient, absolutely, you could have transients that move through and got them. One of the spots that was documented in Setauket, Melville Park, it's a freshwater pond that spills into a tidal estuary. And I got a call from a guy, and he said, there's a huge carp up on the ice in the pond. No bird could have picked it up. Yeah, and is it, I see tracks, but I can't get out there close enough to, is there any chance there's otters in the area? So I went and visited the site. And of course, where they have to come out of the tidal estuary creek, downstream of the dam, and cross the dam and get into the pond, there was a latrine right there with big scales. And it's been there ever since then. You know, it's been there now for 3 years.
I've seen a raccoon pull a carp out of the water at the nature trail.
Yeah, well, there a lot of the times around here, like at Sag Swamp, the carp are just half sticking out of the water, kind of.
Right,
It's a
yeah.
shallow water. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so you
the
do
one-
have to be careful with, you know, the raccoon otter mis-ID. And one of the guys I studied with, he actually did a program with the Texas Fish and Wildlife folks that did their statewide otter survey, and they did not do well on his evaluation. A lot of mis-IDs with raccoon.
Mike, do you think there's any possibility with Lake Ronkonkoma that any of that could be relocation? That area in Hauppauge is a huge trapper's paradise. I mean, they're stepping on each other's toes up there.
Right.
So I don't know what they do with the animals, but we know, you know,
Right.
a lot of them are just.
That's been the case with woodchuck, flying squirrel, you know, all sorts of things that made it over onto the South Fork that were not here when I moved here. They were not east of the Shinnecock Canal. The nuisance, that's a group I need to establish some contact with because they're a wealth of information. But most of the guys that I've dealt with, they kind of know, you know, wow, an otter, that's unusual. And the guy called the DEC right away and said, look, this is what I got. What do I do? And they said, you got to release it on site. It's a fair question, though. Yeah. But elsewhere, they've made some incredible journeys. They're in Laurel Lake, which has no outlet. You know, it's not nearly as developed as the Lake Ronkonkoma area.
Do they?
And
do
they use culverts. I have photographs of one coming out of Staudinger's Pond through the black plastic corrugated pipe. It's like, I don't even know if it's 10 inches. And it's a young otter. You know, they're like, oh, this looks like fun. You know, let me go through here instead of going over. Mom went over, and his sibling went over, but it just wanted to go through the pipe. And it's a long, you know, it's a long, narrow, dark thing. It's kind of weird.
Would their increased population impact the muskrat at all?
No, that they, you know, occasionally will take a muskrat, but my mentor was
Not for food, I mean territory.
No, there's no issue with that. There's many records of them living side by side with beaver and muskrat. In the literature, you'll find just about anything. Yeah, so occasionally they will prey on a beaver or a muskrat, but it's very rare.
Yeah, it's got a nice set of teeth,
Yeah,
like a small dog.
yeah.
How many sites, so where are you checking in East Hampton for new sites,
There's a really good potential latrine site between Big Reed and Little Reed Pond, Oyster Pond. Oyster Pond was difficult to check in 2020. The water level is so high. It's like you're walking around in the woods.
Yeah, I know.
And another really good spot is in the southwest corner of Lake Montauk. It's the crossover to Stepping Stone Pond. Stepping Stone Pond is a really good site. Yeah, and
Looking at Fresh Pond and.
oh, Fresh Pond, Amagansett, yeah, Fresh Pond, Hidden Woods. Fresh Pond, Amagansett has this long peninsula that goes out, and yeah, that's a great spot. The beaver was in Fresh Pond, Amagansett, and Fresh Pond, Hidden Woods. Yeah.
Do you have any estimates on the population from 2008
Yeah, that's
until
the million-dollar
2018?
question. No, I can, but I have an idea of how to figure that out, and it would be, the lab fees for doing DNA analysis are really inexpensive now, relatively to what they were 10 years ago. And you could pick a watershed and collect scat over the course of a year and get a fingerprint, and you can get exactly how many individuals are using that watershed, and then you can extrapolate that for Long Island. Yep. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mike?
I'll stay for the Northwest. Are you on there?
I think so.
Yeah, John Parker?
Let me see if I can figure out how to get back to where we started here. How do I get back to the,
Right click.
excuse me?
What does right click do?
You can, end show,
And then exit out.
exit out. Okay.
Take your time. Seriously, no pressure. I have no idea how to work that. I
Okay.
should say it looks a little like my computer at home, but bigger.
That's all it is, really.
Okay, I could probably.
All right. Well, the reason I'm here is a question of Little Northwest Creek, and an issue that residents have been bringing up. Will Sharp here, who was a resident of that area, was also on the Harbor Committee, is here to back me up. But over the last few decades, the outlet of Little Northwest Creek has moved, and we will zero in here. And this is a 1930s aerial photo. And this is where the outlet is, if you can see the cursor. And this area is completely, undeveloped at this time. The creek is the eastern boundary of the village of Sag Harbor. And I guess the village is shrinking because this is moving to the west.
John, is that down by where they had the carnival? No.
It's
It's in between there and
No, let me
Barcelona
go-
State Park.
Go back to
Oh.
that. Okay, so here's the village, and this is Barcelona. That's Northwest Creek right there, and this is Little Northwest Creek, which goes down almost to 114. So this would be this is the village. That's going to be Havens Beach here, and this is an area where there are three sort of historic, actually just got historic status, housing developments of Azure Rest, Sag Harbor Hills, and Nineveh Beach. And the problem is that Nineveh Beach doesn't have a beach anymore, and Nineveh Beach now has a creek, because the creek has moved 1,000 feet to the east. I'm sorry, that's why I have to have Will, because I keep mixing those two up, to the west. And let me, I'm going to I've looked at the photos going back to 1930, and I won't bore you with all of them, but I'll just show enough of them so that everybody has the understanding. Again, this is the village and the harbor. This would be Havens Beach in here, and this is Little Northwest Creek, and this is the outlet. And the outlet has taken various forms over the years, but from 1930 through 1990 or so, the outlet was pretty much in one spot. And This is 1962, and you can see again, it's heading to the north. And these are the housing developments to the west. And here's 1994, and it seems to be changing, although it does bounce back and forth. I went through year by year aerial photos, and it shows various storms, and it goes back and forth. But it's still somewhat confined to, you know, to an area within several hundred feet maybe of the original outlet. This just shows you that I went year by year from 1994 to 1915. I'm sorry, 2015 rather, showing the changes in where the outlet is. And here's one from 2007, and it shows that it's progressing farther to the west. In other words, this would have been the original spot of the outlet here, and now it's moved sort of halfway down this road, which is known as, this area is known as Nineveh Beach, and the area behind that. And the Nineveh Beach Community Beach would be this area right in here. And there would be roughly, I don't know how many homes, 100 homes in Nineveh Beach, something like that use that as it's a private community beach.
Does it have anything to do with the, what is it, littoral drift? Is it going that way?
According to Rich Warren, that's part of it.
Helping along?
Yeah.
And let's see here. Oh, here we go. And this is one of the most recent here. This is 2018. This is last year. And I'm having trouble getting ones from this year. I don't know why, but usually I've been able to get them by this time of the year. But again, this shows it's this long path here, and it's cutting into what you can't tell from these photos really is that this is a bluff up here. It's a fairly high bluff, and this is cutting into the base of the bluff, and this trees, bushes have gone into the creek. And in this area up here, you can see there's no beach at all anymore. And now the difference between 2018 and 2019 is the outlet is now over here. So it's moving west. So the first issue, or one issue, is that the homeowners are obviously saying, well, you know, we bought property with beach and we don't have beach anymore. But the second issue is also the issue of what's happening to the quality of the water, both in the creek and in the swamp or wetlands. And if this water is polluted in some way, and we have this recent closure by the DEC of this area for shellfishing, including the area outside the outlet, what's the condition of the water that everybody's swimming in right out there? Because this was where the community beach for the Nineveh Beach homeowners area was. This is where the community beach for the Sag Harbor Hills Homeowners Association is. So you have an outlet from a creek, which the DEC is saying is, you know, polluted to the extent that it's closed for shellfishing, pouring that water right into where the kids are swimming and everything of that sort. So I think this probably illustrates, oh, and by the way, the difference here is 1,000 feet, roughly 1,000 feet that it's moved over the time. So what we're doing is looking for help on this issue. The village wants to support the homeowners, the area residents, the town of East Hampton residents who are there. And we're looking to the trustees for help on this. So there's no plan. I mean, individuals from the area have said, well, it should be dredged. we should come and cut this back so it's at the original opening. There's no particular plan to do that at this point, and it wouldn't be something that would be the village's, that the village would have authority to do anyway. We believe it probably is the trustees. We're looking for help, basically, and that's why we're here.
Have you talked to the DEC about this at all?
I haven't. I believe individuals may have brought this up with the DEC, but basically, I think the trustees is the first step.
Yeah, I know there is, I think, fairly credible documentation that the trustees are probably the owners of the creek. And as Mike pointed out earlier, the DEC, is pretty strapped on resources out here, and sometimes without a call to action or an invitation to talk about these things, we don't see a lot of presence. So, I would personally like to support the trustees looking into this. Will brought this to my attention informally a while back. We were doing some shellfish seeding out front with Cornell a couple of years ago. And, personally I've witnessed this deterioration of the beach, and to see a local community basically lose their local bathing beach and possibly see water quality issues because it's not getting properly flushed and the wetland may not be working properly as a result. I think it's something that's worth a look, and maybe, looking into a possible engineering engagement or an estimate with an engineering company.
I would think that the DEC has a lot of input here, right? I mean, this is not like Georgia
Well, we would
that
be
we've been
applying to
doing.
them for a permit,
Right.
certainly, but I think maybe getting some information together, pre-permit information, like a basic look. We can certainly reach out and let them know that we're interested in this. We developed a pretty good rapport with them on Georgia.
So in the past, when you contacted DEC, do they require science before they have a conversation? Or-
Yeah.
Well, it's a
Okay,
formal
so-
process.
No, they'll have a conversation, but before they're gonna engage in the permit process, yeah, they're gonna want it based in.
So I assume that. What was interesting is that they just announced that they closed this area from their science. So I guess the question is,
You want to come to the podium, please?
Sure, come on. Again, this is Will Sharpley. He's also on the Harbor Committee, and he's a resident of Nineveh Beach.
so the question would be, what's the next step? Do you folks have somebody that is the liaison with the DEC to begin that conversation? And that's why John and I are here in that regard, that they walked the area, they've obviously been there testing, et cetera, and they haven't heard anything from the residents about the creek itself, the quality of water there, and the erosion. They're two different things. I've understood that it's very difficult to get DEC to act on any body of water that doesn't have to dredge it, that's not related to navigation.
Takes a lot of time.
Takes a lot of time. Folks at the Northwest Alliance that are dealing with Northwest Creek are apparently on some dredging line.
That's county.
That might be different.
It's
Ah.
a little different situation.
That's not a
But
good-
no, the DEC is.
No, this is inboard. This is, it.
Oh,
They've dredged
Well,
the
that's
mouth.
still- That's still tied to navigation.
Yeah, it's still a county project.
What you're talking about,
Mhm.
extending the channel down the creek is still tied to a degree to navigation.
Gotcha.
But the
Okay.
DEC will entertain and will issue permits to dredge out, realign outlets on some of these creeks. And it's a fairly common thing. Now, the fact that this has not had an application to do that before now is gonna probably take longer, because you're gonna have to do some more documentation than you typically would. Now, is this part of any water testing program that's going on right now?
Not yet.
Not-
Gobbler has not gone that far east.
Yeah.
Haven.
This
and
is-
It would be the
Northwest Creek.
DEC
DEC
water
is
testing.
that.
They've tested
DEC's
it.
testing it, but you know what, it'd be nice if it was like some there was a database being assembled.
We can look
Well, I
into how to
think the DEC
expand
would
that.
have a database.
Well,
I
the-
don't know where their
Yeah,
sample
well, I know the
points are here,
The
but
sewage treatment plant testing in Sag Harbor that's done by the DEC is once monthly. So I don't know how frequent this is, but we could check that same database and find out the frequency.
We
have
can
some of
get
that
the
information.
DEC information,
Yeah,
whatever they have.
yeah.
That's
It's just a reference point that just to the west.
So if, there- if,
has already requested it.
You know what you could do too is you could contact Surfrider and see what they do about their water testing.
they would probably be the quickest source to do that, not Stony Brook.
From down here, yeah, well, with Goldberg, we've had some prolonged contractual discussions,
Mhm.
and we have a format in place for other sites in East Hampton and a format in place in Sag Harbor
Mhm.
to the west. And this site was not included. Havens Beach is the closest site
Right, so,
for both Surfrider and Goldberg Lab.
so if you folks had a conversation with DEC and they were amenable to the idea of looking into this, who would be the scientist that would do that? Would that be somebody in your organization that we would have to hire? Because I spoke with Rich Warren about it and Dr. Wershire from Woods Hole, and they're the big guns, and they also charge lots of dinero to get this stuff done. But is that the way?
That's our way.
That's one way. Is there community money for? Because there's been conversation.
CPF would be the choice. You might be able to get CPF funding for this.
Mhm.
Dredging for water quality purposes is eligible for CPF water quality
So
funding.
that might be a parallel effort, is to bring that up onto the agenda
Right.
of East Hampton CPF water quality.
I mentioned it to them last Thursday.
What funding sources might be available from Sag Harbor?
Well, there's more and more awareness and interest, so it's,
There has not been a lot of money made available from the village for the current projects.
Is there a homeowners association presently
Yes.
in Nineveh that would be willing to financially participate?
on some level. I don't think they have a lot of money, but I think that they would. The three communities are referred to as the Sands communities. I think all three would pitch in, and that's maybe 300 homeowners, something to that. So who amongst you folks would contact DEC, or would it be amongst you folks, or?
Yeah, we could, sure.
So I guess that would be the first question, is if you could make that contact, and then could they give you a ballpark? They'd say, well, it's $50,000 to do a
No.
No, see, they're not in the dredging business.
No, not the dredging, just to do
They only do the permit.
but could they give you a ballpark of what it costs to do the science?
No,
No.
I doubt it.
No.
So then you'd have to go to, like, Inner Science or somebody.
Each project is unique.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd probably have to get an estimate from, a firm like Rich Warren's
Mhm.
firm or Chris Goldberg.
Part of the thing would be scoping out the dredging project, how many yards, it's a whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of you're gonna have to do some background for your engineering.
Well-
'Cause you can't walk into DEC and go, well, this is what we're thinking about doing. You're gonna have to go in there with a hard set of plans. Things like quantities, the exact meets and bounds of the areas that you're dredging, and the most important question is why?
Yeah.
Okay, and a simple one-word answer, environmental, isn't gonna really make it. You're gonna have to come up with some science behind this. This is the trend that's occurred on the coliform testing that's been going on in this area for, it's probably, in all likelihood, you're looking at something that's gonna take you maybe 2 seasons to put the
To do the
data
sci-
together, to put the science together so that you can have a real credible project that you can present to them. And will they issue a permit on it? I would say they probably would. It's, just what John has shown us here
That was remarkable.
is, looking at those aerials, you can see that whole creek is shoaled up right around to the elbow
Yeah.
there.
And it's
Right in here where it's gotten much shallower. than
it's
it
slowing down quite a bit. I live right here, and it's remarkable to see the change. What's interesting to me is that, like Havens Beach, not so long ago, many people couldn't find it on a map. And I've challenged a lot of people to point out Northwest Creek who live in these communities, and they don't know where it is. They know where Little Northwest is. So this has, as Sands community has become acknowledged, there's more and more awareness of what's going on in the creek, and people are speaking out. And so we come to you if there's anything that John and I, through the Harbor Committee, can do to put our forces together with you folks. Please let us know so that we can, and we realize it's not going to happen overnight.
No, but it might be, you know what, this may be the first step where maybe yourselves and some representatives, some harbor management get together and see if we can't get this off the ground.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we'd like to do. Again, this is the first step. We're trying to bring the stakeholders together, whoever they may be. We think Trustees is a major, or the major stakeholder in this, in terms of, you know, your ownership and authority. And we'd like your expertise. I mean, this is something that you have expertise in dealing with other areas. We'd like your help. I mean, the new administration, the new mayor in the village is...
she's on board.
I would say she's on board. She's more supportive. You know, she encouraged me to come to you, bring this to your attention, you know, and ask for your help, and ask to work together on this in whatever way we can. To work together on this in any way we can to, you know, to try to solve the problem. As I say, this is step one. We're looking to decide what step two should be. We realize that we need some scientific evidence to back up any request to the DEC to do dredging. It's a question of how we get that, who's going to fund it. The closure obviously supports this. You know, we were on board to bring this to you before there was the closure. You know, based upon the suspicions of the residents that there was a problem with the water quality there, and the DEC closure confirms that.
I think first, before we take that leap, we should know why the DEC closed it, whether it's the deteriorating water quality based on their sampling, or whether it's the fact that they only really started looking at it. You know, they may not have done sampling, they may have only done sampling fairly recently, realized it's of poor quality and closed it on that basis. I don't know what their rationale
Has there
was.
been active shellfishing in there up to this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Commercial?
But it seems to me that with the, you know, obviously the closure, the water quality data that forced the closure, you know, the historical record that you're showing with the photographs over the years, the fact that the bluff is eroding, I mean, I think those things brought to the DEC and, you know.
It's a pretty good case.
Yeah.
All right, John, so why don't we plan to try to set up a meeting with
Okay.
some other stakeholders and do the research that John's suggesting, and perhaps some other research, and see if we can't get together over the next couple of weeks.
Sure. Again, we could look at whether additional water testing, whether we should engage for additional water testing, whether the DEC water testing is sufficient, whether for the study is. I mean, we can look at all those, you know, all those
Maybe
issues.
Pick around an agenda before the meeting.
Sure. Happy to work with you on that. Let me add that the waterways law and the extended jurisdiction is an issue that has been sort of stalled, and our new mayor, Kathleen McCahey, wants to look at. She has to take a fresh look at it because she's not been on the village board. So, but she wants to go back to the beginning, and she wants to see what the recommendations, the original recommendations from 2.5 years ago from the Harbor Committee and from the trustees were on this. So there's going to be sort of a hold on that for probably a little while. But I think that it's perfectly appropriate for us to re-engage in terms of the discussions that we had in terms of a subcommittee, you know, on those issues, and that's. So we can work together on both, you know, on both things. But I mean, the idea is to work together on this. So,
Sounds good, John.
okay.
Thank you. for the update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see anyone else out there, so we'll,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
I'll watch the rest of this on TV.
Oh, my God. Get a life.
That's what they all say.
All right, so we'll move on to old business. Update on the new shellfish area closures. You have anything on that, John?
I just, basically, John went over it, I'll just show you the DC map on it. DC's recently taken another look at many areas on Long Island. This is a list of areas that have been closed, not closed entirely, but the status has trended towards more closures, whether it's extending a seasonal closure, maybe 2 weeks on each end of it in the fall and the spring, or closing an open area or closing a seasonal area. So it's not just East Hampton that they're looking at. So it's all these, this is a list of areas that new or extended closures on Long Island, and this is a list of new openings. So they're sort of reevaluating their shellfish closure maps. And then this is what's happening in Little Northwest Creek. It'll be a seasonal closure, closing May 1st and through November 30th, including this,
Is that what we were just looking at with John?
Yeah,
Yeah.
same, that's
Wow.
that's brand new. It was open to shellfishing before that. And this arc is a standard for if an area is closed, all the marinas have this arc around them. Sort of a precautionary thing. Doesn't necessarily mean that they tested high coliforms out here. It's just pretty much
That's
precautionary.
information we can probably get with a conversation, right?
Yeah, I would think. And then, this isn't in our jurisdiction, but this seasonal area in Lake Montauk was closed, I believe, from May 1st through October 1st. And now previously May 15th through October 15th, and now it'll be closed May 1st through November 30th. So they've expanded that seasonal closure. And those are the two areas in East Hampton that were affected.
And what's the reason for the expansion of closure?
Well, they do testing all the time, and I guess their water quality testing showed that the water quality wasn't really up to what it should be in the period that they allowed it to be open. So they expanded that closure to move back into May 1st from the 15th. And then on the other end of it, where it was open October 15th, I think, they extended it to November 30th.
Yeah. The DEC operates on guaranteeing that the area is good for shellfishing, so they take a little, they make sure it's,
And
if there's any question, they call.
some of this could, I don't know, it could have to do with water temperature. The water temperatures may be rising or increasing year to year, so that would naturally, favor the proliferation of the bacteria. So if, have a longer warm water season, you're going to have bacteria growing in that season. So,
Notes too bad there, as you see where Star Island Causeway is,
yeah, that they couldn't cut it through.
hang on, there used to be two one-way valves across there, flappers, that on the incoming tide, it would push them close, so you couldn't take the water from Coons Foot Cove and push it back into the lake,
Right.
but it would run the other way. And it worked really good, flushing out Coons Foot Cove, and would probably improve this area if they could ever get it back there. For some reason, when they did those marina slips for Snug Harbor Motel, some reason when they did those slips, those pipes disappeared. But those were there for years.
I remember having this same conversation 30 years ago.
Yeah. Who'd you have it with?
Larry,
Yeah.
you know.
Does the DEC have the authority to tell private homeowners that own the bottom land there that they can't take shellfish?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thought so too.
Yeah, they regulate all taking of shellfish. And that's, you know, that extends from the Food and Drug Administration. It's a public health thing. So that's that.
Thanks, John.
All right, and that brings us to discuss the proposals we received for the historic research on Trustees Northwest Harbor area holdings.
All kind of fits together, doesn't it?
Yeah, as Will and John pointed out earlier, you know, there is a lot more interest and awareness in the western end of East Hampton Township. And the trustees, you know, have a lot of holdings in that area and a lot of property. It's not really determined fully who owns it. So it was, you know, a lot of interest to myself and other members of the board, and you know, we came up with the idea of putting together a request for proposal to do more research on this particular area, you know, ranging from Southampton line, Sag Harbor area, over towards Elwhat Brook and the county properties and some state properties, town properties, et cetera, and of course Northwest Harbor and the creeks and estuaries. So we did receive two proposals from two, I think, credible, you know, respected land use and historic research persons and companies. Mr. Rick Whalen, who's done a lot of research for the trustees, a former attorney of ours, and Steve Warner. They were just open today at the trustee office, so they're quite fresh. And I think there was a good suggestion made by Francis earlier when they were open that, you know, we take some time and take a look at them at a committee level.
There's such a disparity
Yeah.
in the pricing on those.
Or maybe
That
the scope.
I really think that we need to maybe sit down privately with each of the prospective applicants and kind of see if we can understand it better.
Yeah, so, you know, I think that's something that we should take a look at maybe over the next couple of weeks before the next meeting. See if we can't get a couple of meetings together with the applicants or submitters of the proposals. And talk about it some more at the next meeting.
I just had I looked at these, Arlene sent them by email. I took a look at each one of them. I agree, you know, with your suggestion, but it seemed to me that each one of these people brings a little bit different perspective to the table.
Yeah.
It's almost too bad that,
It's
you know,
not one proposal.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
thought crossed my mind too, John, and, you know, maybe that there is some synergy here down the road. And, you know, maybe that's a conversation we can have.
Yeah.
So,
Might
yeah,
be.
there's different skills and
Yeah.
focus points, as you pointed out.
Right.
So I think a lot of us probably, that thought crossed our minds.
Yeah, yeah.
John, did you notice, if, I really didn't get a chance to look into it too deeply, if either one of these documents here indicate that we do in fact own Northwest Creek or Little Northwest, John
Sort
and,
of the point of the whole.
John, no, I understand, the gentleman from Sag Harbor?
Well, yeah, his position stems from previous research that was done. And that is documented in a paper that Rick Whalen did a few years ago.
So, right, so based on that, he believes that we are in fact the owner of that creek,
I don't think he know, well,
or, okay.
He doesn't know, but.
I don't think he really
I mean,
knows.
that's a conclusion that Rick feels is very likely, but it hasn't been proven through historic and legal research.
That's kind of the reason we're doing all this.
Right.
Just, there's so many pieces like this, Brian, in the area that, you know, and these properties are kind of sitting idly, you know, and for 20 years now, this creek has deteriorated and no one's really stepping up. And I think we're going to see more of these environmental issues going forward, and I think it's important that it be clear who's going to be the lead agency, who's the owner, and how we should proceed in managing these areas. It's a really valid question. Good question.
Yeah, thanks.
I don't think we need a motion to table this for a couple of weeks, do we? No.
Did we have a time period that we're going to continue to keep the RFP open? Is it closed? Are we
It's
gonna
closed. We-
It is?
Yeah,
Okay.
we received, there's a date to accept them, which is passed. and
Okay.
That's why they're open. But now, we just want to compare these two and try to get a handle on
Sure.
them.
Yeah, I think it does speak to.
We should set a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see us do it by the next meeting if we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things it shows is how narrow the field of expertise is in this area of historic research that goes back, as far as the trustees do. And I think it's important to get this accomplished while we have credible resources available with the expertise.
How widely was the RFP circulated?
I was put in the East Hampton Star and, announced at our meetings. So we didn't broadcast emails to any possible.
Up west,
Yeah, we didn't do a broad, mass email or something like that. So there may be other people out there, but regionally, I don't think there's a huge population right now.
I read both proposals as well, and one of my gut reactions were similar to John's. Is there any type of potential for a cohesive effort?
Yeah.
But also one of the reactions I had was because I'm an attorney maybe, is that if we're looking for some legal clarity or some effort towards legal certainty, then somebody like Rick would be good for the job.
It
So
also seemed like some of what Steve would be relying on as part of his report was ground that's already been covered by Rick.
right. But ultimately, I would be interested in continuing these conversations as well, whether it be here or in committee or what have you. But
Conversely, I was thinking that Rick might benefit from Steve's, knowledge of other type of documentation.
Historical
Right.
document. It might not necessarily be readily available to Rick.
Right. And that Steve is
Well,
intimately
Yeah, why
involved with.
why don't we think in terms of maybe reaching out to both of them, having a further discussion, and who knows, there may be something, where there could be some value
Yeah.
engineering that's added by actually combining the two. Hey, guys, I'm on duty in 15 minutes, I'm gonna
I think combining, some kind of combination is probably something we should be thinking about.
Okay. Jim, do you want to be on? Yes. Can we have a third person? Does anyone else want to? Susan, would you like to? Okay, great. Be a good choice. All right, so Susan, Jim, and I will chair the committee to move this further and report back to the board.
Okay. Kayak Racks.
Well, Francis, do we want to go over the
Oh, yeah.
resolution for the roadways in Northwest Woods and Waynescott, or is that further down? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
It's not on for
It
the-
didn't make it on here? Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Is that okay? Yeah.
There's a copy of it here.
Yeah, everyone should have a copy of a resolution we discussed, but I don't think it was formalized.
I have.
And it pertains to a series of historic trustee roads that are located in the 114 Waynescott, Northwest Woods general area. And Chris, please comment if I'm not being specific enough. Where there were several subdivisions that took place in the 70s and 80s. And in an effort to maybe clarify trustee holdings, some quitclaim deeds were issued. And there were some recessions through that time as well, and some of these properties were foreclosed on. And there were a lot of transfers that took place. And I think, some of the trustee ownership clarification or documentation got a little clouded. So we wanted to actually issue a resolution that tries to clarify the trustee ownership in this area of certain roads. And if it's okay, I'd like to read that resolution into the record.
Please do.
Is that okay? Okay, the following resolution was unanimously adopted by the trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton. Whereas it is well documented in both East Hampton Town and East Hampton Town trustee records the open and unopened roads found adjacent to town, county, and privately held properties north and south of Merchants Pass, east of Town Line Road, and west of Route 114 are owned by the trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton dating back to the Dongan patent. And whereas these properties included but not limited to Merchants Path, Line Path, Town Line Road, and Six Pole Highway, among others, were historically used to promote travel, commerce, and access to firewood lots, among other uses. And the East Hampton Town Trustees historically and presently manage the use and access to the common lands in these areas. And whereas from time to time, in connection with permitting easements and other negotiated uses of trustee property, the trustees were granted quitclaim deeds over certain holdings by private developers and landowners, not as a first-time conveyance or starting point of trustee ownership of these properties, but as a confirmation and reaffirmation of historical trustee ownership. And whereas any foreclosure or other legal proceeding arising subsequent to the trustee's acceptance of a quitclaim deed has no bearing on trustee ownership rights, which predate these quitclaim deeds by hundreds of years. And whereas the trustees reassert their claim of ownership over the ancient woods roads in the areas described above, and also reaffirm any grants of access easements which the trustees have made to private landowners over these roads. And whereas trustee claims and reassertion of ownership as to the roads described above will not in any way impact the interests of the town or townspeople, inasmuch as Town Code Section 255-1-43C precludes a private landowner in most circumstances from using pre-existence of trustee roads as a basis for claiming a right to multiple building lots. And whereas the trustees claim ownership of the trustee roads and properties found within the defined area today and forever. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the East Hampton Town Trustees do reaffirm and reassert their ownership of the woods roads throughout the above described Northwest Woods and wooded portions of Wainscott, including such roads in the area north and south of Merchants Path, as to which the trustees received quitclaim deeds in the 1980s and 1990s, and be it further resolved that the trustees do also reaffirm the validity of any access easements which we have heretofore granted to private landowners over any and all of the above described town trustee roads. Trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton, on behalf of Francis J. Block, clerk of the trustees.
Do I have a motion to accept this?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay. All right,
So thank you, Francis.
so we'll get a copy of that to the town.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Kayak Racks.
Arlene, on that one, let's just make sure we use the clean version with a couple of
Yeah,
those
you can.
typos.
Yep.
Thanks.
Kayak Racks. We authorized Kayak Racks at Mile Hill Road, and I spoke to Scott Wilson, who manages the town-owned land adjacent to the area that the boats are pulled up on the beach on, and that we're proposing to put the Kayak Racks on, just to make sure he's aware of it and okay with it, and there's no conflict there. He's supportive of the idea. Spoke to Ed Michaels also, and he's very supportive of the idea. He'd like to see us regulate all boats on the beach, all over trustee beaches. And I tried to get in touch with Chris Hamilton, who's done Kayak Racks for us in the past. I haven't been able to do that yet. I'm working with Brian on getting something set up this week. And we also we believe, authorized 2 additional kayak racks on the end of Hands Creek Road a few meetings ago, but haven't been able to track down that documentation. So I'd just sort of like to reaffirm our desire to put 2 more kayak racks at the end of Hands Creek Road.
Is
And all.
anyone sure there's a need for 2 additional down there?
Yes.
They're all full right now.
They're full now.
On Hands Creek?
Yeah, they're full to the brim.
Because that one in the past has not been the most popular.
Everything's getting.
Yeah, I was down
During
there
the
last week.
off-season, a lot of them disappear, and the majority stay. But right now, they're like squashing them together.
Yeah.
I figured
Do they
they'd
all
be a
have
problem by now. They do, actually, the ones that I looked, yeah.
Yeah, there might be a couple there that, I saw a couple of kayaks that are next to it and a paddleboard that's next to it, but only like three vessels, and everything else is on the racks, and the racks are full, so,
Yeah, so we should just,
yeah.
So make a motion
forward
for
with
you to
what we're
move
gonna do.
forward?
yeah,
Yeah, if you could do that.
okay.
One quick thought too, because I have some experience now with the kayaks. And at the end of the season, what people are doing is they're leaving these really big locks and chains on the split rail. And, they get rusty and then they're not good anymore. I think you should take them with you when you bring your kayak back to your home.
I think we probably should make that a part of the permit,
Yeah.
and then Ed said he would cut them off if,
Okay.
whatever's left, he'll take away,
Clean 'em up.
including the locks.
Yeah, because they're getting away.
You know,
had that
the
discussion
concern
with him.
obviously is them getting taken. But what you might consider, just a thought out of the blue, it just came to me, is if people want to use locks, perhaps they use one of those, like those TSA locks, where if they have to be removed, if somebody leaves them, there's a master that they can be removed if somebody's not following. Meanwhile, they're still safe, keeping the people's boats safe when they are locked up. Just a thought.
Are we able to?
Oh, I don't think there's any
more expensive,
issue of them locking their boats up. When their boats are there, it's
Oh, it's
leaving the
the locks
locks.
there when they're gone?
Yeah, at the end of
What's
the
the
season.
purpose?
I think
Yeah,
they probably
they
just
do it.
They plan on
abandon
using it
them.
again the following year.
Or they just abandon them,
Yeah.
they're too rusty. One other thing on this, actually, at Mile Hill Road, I went down there to count the boats and what's there, and there's about 4 or 5 or 6 non-kayak boats pulled up there. Dinghies, a small rowboat, sunfish, those kinds of things. I talked to Ed about that, and right now, there is no prohibition on pulling boat up on the
actually allowable.
beach.
It's actually allowable, there's language in the town code that says people may pull their boats up on the beach.
And his conversation with me went that, maybe the trustees want to revisit that and suggest code change language to not necessarily make that a right anymore and permit those kinds of activities as well. I mean, I think that's something to think about. I don't think that's something we should act on right away.
I
but-
think bigger boats, bigger problems in terms of, putting them on racks, or putting pipes in the ground. I mean, unless everybody is still okay with that, I don't really care about that.
Well,
But-
the question it raised to me was at Mile Hill Road, okay, there's boats all over the place, nobody said you can't do it. Now we're coming in there, we're putting racks there, we're gonna say, if you got a kayak or a paddleboard, it's gotta be on a rack. So what do we say to the guy with the sunfish? And we either tell him off the beach, or you can do it because the code says you can do it, and then the kayak guy's gonna say, well, what about me?
Or you issue a permit for the sunfish.
Why say anything?
Well,
The
that's
kayak guy
the other thing,
appreciates the rack.
is pass a resolution that in this spot, you have to have a permit to bring a dinghy or a sunfish on
You
it.
can pilot it, you can
But I don't know
pilot it
if you
here.
can do that since it's already written into the town code that it's
I
allowed.
mean, it would be a,
Well, how are we doing it with the kayaks, though?
They're portable, and it started out, they would keep, they're landing up in the beach grass.
Well, that's where these
Well, I
boats
know
are
that,
as
but how
well.
are we,
what we're doing is we're
how
putting
are
up,
we
we're putting up,
regulating it? We're not
putting up.
regulating it, we're
It's a
just,
convenience,
It's a
right, the racks?
convenience to the people, we're putting up
We're
racks for
registering
them
it,
to use.
and we're creating a registry, and we're making it so that it's not impacting the environment.
Also, if a, excuse me, if a kayak, Ed Michaels told me about this, if a kayak goes astray, and now they're concerned that somebody may have flipped,
Yeah,
they can
right.
call down to the office.
Right.
Arlene can say, yes, that belongs to Mr. Smith.
Well, it's also in the
They could be
code.
privy to that information if they want, I'm sure. You know,
I'm 99% sure that the code also reads that the boats cannot be stored in the beach grass. And if they are, they're in violation, so they can be summoned.
I think we just, let's go with the kayak racks now, and
They can be impounded.
Why don't we talk about that a little more, John? I think it's a worthy
yeah, it's something to
conversation.
think about.
You know, maybe for next year, you know, we're in the middle of
Because
the season.
there are places like Mile Hill where there's a concentration of small boats pulled up on the beach. But then there's also issues like along, this is my stretch, so I'm familiar with it, along Hedges Banks, where there's houses and staircases, and they have their kayaks on the beach there, so it's, you know, that's a little bit different, because, you know,
For the access
it's
and
kind of a riparian right kind of a thing.
That's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, I think we need to talk
Well,
about that.
Lost Point also,
you know, we put the racks in to make,
you know, where the houses are.
to make it convenient for the people, to increase the amount of storage and stuff, so it's kind of a little appley and orangey.
But like Sag Harbor, you know, there's an area in Havens Beach where you can pull your dinghy up or your JY-15 or something, and you pay for the privilege, and we've got a spot there. Is that something we want to think about, designating spots that people can bring
People do it
small
now,
boats and
too.
leave them there?
Like Montauk,
Then you're
people
gonna
pull
have to
stuff
change the
up on.
code.
You may have to.
And, yeah.
I think it's a worthy conversation.
Anything else on that? No.
Can we talk about boats, we talk about, we're looking into considering purchasing a new outdoor motor for the Mahalo pump out boat.
if you need it,
It's gonna be like,
Yeah, it's on his
It
last
could be
leg.
like $6,000.
it's probably gonna be more like, it might be, it's probably gonna be eight, well, the one that's on it right now, Mercury has a commercial model, it's the same one there, it's about $8,000.
do we get to purchase it on a
A
bid?
state bid, it's a state bid,
That's
it's
fine.
on the state bid, and there's probably gonna be some cost
I
for
would be okay
installing
with
it.
that, sure.
Yeah.
Are they Yamahas on the state bid?
Because Yamaha's, because
less
Mercury has a, it's not on the state bid, but they have like their own nationwide state bid. And what's on the boat right now is a Mercury.
I'm just reacting.
Yeah.
Barley's not too hot on Mercury's, he's switched to Yamahas.
So that was about
He's
the
getting
same
them
price.
off the bid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow, it's,
Well,
we're looking into it, we just need
I think we need to maybe make a motion and put it in works if the thing is gonna crap out on us at any time without notice, you know?
Are we eligible for any grant money for the engine upgrade or anything like that?
Are we still getting the $10,000?
Yeah, but it's 10,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we're gonna get that, we always do.
we're gonna get
You know, we'll get
10,000.
that, so.
We're maxing out that grant all the time, you know, and we spend a lot more than we get. But
We're making a lot
It's
of
a good-
money
it's a good-
on the kayak racks
it's
also.
probably the most effective thing for keeping.
Oh, yeah, no, it's essential to water quality.
Grant money is a reimbursement, so it doesn't,
we're good to go. All right, so let's go back to the mosquito survey. There was none this week.
There was none this week. Tom, Iwineko, Vector Control felt there was no need for it because we're between moons and the heat, he felt the heat we had would dry up the marsh. So next week is a new moon, so we should be going. So far, we were halfway through the season. I think there were 8. Today was the 8th. 4 of those were canceled. We have 8 more to go, and I would think most of those will be going because seems how it plays out.
You get
Farther into the season.
The season.
Yeah.
So when they're canceled, there's no spraying at all?
Yeah, that's the reason. There's no
Yeah,
point in
okay.
us going if they're
Right.
not gonna spray. Right?
Okay, cool. So how many weeks have they sprayed this year?
Well, we've sampled 4 weeks. I don't know if they sprayed all 4. I know they sprayed twice in a limited area. Not sure I don't think they sprayed all 4 of the weeks that we sampled.
Yeah, 2 sounds like, I think that's what it was. They sprayed 2.
Yeah, and I think, we went out and sampled in a moon tide week where they felt there might be enough water in the marsh to foster breeding, but we didn't find enough to warrant the spraying anyway, so.
All right. Any other committees want to report? Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up, I just want to briefly discuss, and I think it's important to do this. I don't want to start argument. I want to just discuss the trash on the beach as often as I can. I keep an eye on it. Look, as I said last time, I'm with you on this pilot program. I don't agree with it, but I'm with you on how it's going to go. But I want to monitor it as I've been doing over the years, and I think it's worth continuing to talk about it. And all I want to say is I've got some pictures here of this past weekend and the weekend before, and one from the weekend prior when Jim was discussing it in the last meeting. He was discussing a party that he was aware of that had bagged their trash, set it next to the garbage can, and it got picked into or whatever. That wasn't the situation that I had asked Susan to report on. This was a household trash issue that was brought to Wyborg's Beach. It was laid next to the can. The animals ripped into it. We found evidence of who left it there. It was an Airbnb customer. We went to the residence. They rented the house for the weekend. These people are long gone. Okay.
They took household trash.
They took their household trash
to
to
a garbage
Wyborg.
can on the beach.
On the beach, not the one, well,
That's a
they could
stretch.
have put it in the one at the parking area. However, maybe, whoa, maybe, I don't know what the reasoning is, but I'm assuming because those cans were full, they maybe made the attempt to walk down to the beach in hopes that they wouldn't be full, and they were, and rather than carry it back, they left it on the beach. Who can make sense out of this kind of stuff? But it does continue to happen. From what I see at Georgia Beach, it isn't happening. Again, this morning, I went to the beach and the seagulls were literally pulling the garbage out of the trash can. One after another, one piece after another. And the more that hit the ground, the more seagulls would come and start a frenzy. If you want to pass these around and take them. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm bummed that Susan's not here this evening, these sky lanterns, these balloons that are on fire, one landed on my roof, okay? And it was still burning. And it then blew off the roof onto my porch. Now, my roof is asphalt shingle, not a bigger problem. When it blew onto the porch, it blew into the corner where all the leaves blew into. And of course, we were there, so it didn't cause a problem. But this might be something
They're
that
banned in
Susan
East
might
Hampton.
want to, oh, they are?
They are, yeah, they're illegal.
Well, then I've got to find out where this person sent me this picture, because he said, did you see these? And I said,
Oh, they're
no.
being sold?
Yes, they're being sold,
Interesting.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
one of those landed on a roof of a commercial space in Montauk a few years back and started a fire.
Oh, my gosh.
And from that point on, they've been banned.
Okay, interesting. I'll find out where this was taken.
Anybody knows where it was sold, please let us know.
Yeah, yeah. See them in the store.
Now, I don't know if there's a ban on selling them, but there's a ban on
Yeah.
using them.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Anybody else?
Yes, I do. I was asked to speak about a topic that's, I think, going to be really sensitive to the entire board and to a lot of people in our community. But over the past couple of weeks, my understanding is there was a fishing boat from out of state that was setting some gill nets very close to shore in the area of Sagaponack and Wainscott. And I don't think they were very familiar with the area, because they set them kind of right off some of the beachheads. And some people were swimming and actually running into them. And a lot of people that are out now aren't here in the off-season, and they were like, well, what is this? You know, they weren't really aware that this was going on. And the other thing that was going on at the same time was there were really large schools of bunker and menhaden in the nearshore area, and a lot of whales around. So unfortunately, a young humpback whale got caught in one of this fisherman's nets and almost drowned, and some people had to swim off the beach and paddle off the beach with knives and cut it free. And you know, a lot of people were really upset about it. You know, they're not familiar with fishing practices, they didn't even know this was going on.
Wasn't this left, didn't they set it at night or
The
something?
nets were
They
being,
leave them there
they
for a
were,
day.
they were left for quite a period of time, which is, you know, not a practice that I think a lot of our local guys do.
Yeah, they
But
just,
what's happened is the gillnet fishery has gotten so popular in the South Shore area, South Shore Ocean Beach area, that people are really, you know, going after it. And I think it's actually going to be a detriment to our local fishermen. You know, I mean, I've been on the jetties at Georgia, and nets are dropped inside the jetties. The boats come quite frequently from the west, you know, that I observe when I'm on the beach. So it's something I think we need to start to talk about and maybe understand a little better. I mean, this is a resource for our community. Our town has jurisdiction 1,500 feet out, and to have boats coming from New England to be fishing in our waters and not being responsible with their behavior, I think is something that needs to be looked at a
Have
little
we
bit.
pinned down what boats they are?
I've got some pictures, Bill, and I'll tell you, I can't believe how close they get to the
Yeah,
shore.
well, this particular net was 75 feet off.
You know, you're not, the town
Now,
has
there's videos of the
jurisdiction for
whale and the net,
anchoring,
you know, it's disturbing. I don't know if
anything
you want
within
to see it,
1,500
but.
feet of shore.
Well, this wasn't anchored, they stay
gotta-
move, they
you gotta
move.
anchor
Well,
them.
they anchor the net, but the boat stays
Yeah.
moving, and then they
Yeah.
split.
Right,
But you still have to anchor the net to the bottom for them to work, so.
yeah.
that
They're
would-
set with anchors,
Well, our understanding is this boat was from Rhode Island.
yeah.
Is that confirmed? I mean,
They must need a
Well,
license.
that,
Yeah, they'd have to have a state permit to fish in
I
these waters.
noticed,
Yeah, I don't understand how that all worked.
this has been going on for, you know, like,
It's
the
expanded.
gill nets have been going on for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I heard it was a boat from Hampton Bay. that
That's
was
what I
coming out.
had heard from Shinnecock area.
Shinnecock, you know, is definitely, a lot of the guys from Southampton
usually
and points
around
west,
fall.
they keep their boats in
Yeah,
Shinnecock.
yeah. That's what the
But they're,
pictures I
they're,
have are
they're
from.
coming
the
out
fall,
and
not
fishing, and
recently.
Yeah.
I don't even know how some of the beach crews can even fish anymore, because when I'm surf casting, there's nets every 100 yards in the fall. So it's gotten to the point where it's really, I think, infringing on our community's ability to fish in our own
Well,
town waters.
Are you suggesting that we can regulate our own town waters?
Well, I'm wondering if there should be maybe just a registry to
but the town said
understand
you
how many
couldn't anchor
nets
any
are
nets
out
in-
there, like almost like a beach fencing thing where you get a simple permit with this tag on your net, and we at least know who's fishing, and if you leave your net for an extended period of time, you know, maybe you have some responsibility, because right now, New York State doesn't really have any guidelines. You can put a net up for 6 months.
Do you think
And
that,
I just think it's a little irresponsible not to have,
it seems
you know,
to
I
me
know a lot
that,
of the local guys, they're with their gear the whole time, you know, and that to me is
What if they
responsible.
were told they couldn't put their nets within 1,500 feet of the beach?
Well, I don't know if that's the answer, but I think knowing, you know, that it's a resource that, it's our community's resource, I think is part of the issue that I'm raising, and also that I think nets should be attended by the fishermen. To
Absolutely.
leave the nets unattended, I think, is irresponsible.
Well, the gill net is indiscriminate in its catch. And to leave them for extended periods, I think is absolutely irresponsible.
Yeah, that's the most dangerous part of it, you know.
It seems
so.
to me that with this latest incident, this is probably going to raise questions in the minds of the people that regulate this endeavor.
Yeah.
And,
It probably
you know,
will.
in terms of whales, when whales are present, when bunker
I
schools
mean,
are present.
it was bad business on the part of this fisherman to be setting in an area.
I
where
like the way
whales
you're
are in.
explaining it, Rick, because, again, with our local fishermen, they are much more responsible how they operate that gill netting system.
Yeah.
And,
They're with the gear.
and with, along with the discussion that's gonna come out now, there's gonna be a lot of, they're gonna come down on the local fishermen too. They're gonna group them in. And there's gotta be that understanding, and you made it clear, and I think we should make it clear again. The local fishermen do it a lot more properly, and things like that probably wouldn't happen
Yep, if you're
the
with
way
your
we,
gear.
the way our
If you're
local
with your
fishermen
gear.
do it.
If you're with your gear,
Right.
you're a lot more
And that's why it
responsible.
hasn't happened, that I know of. I don't know if it's ever happened.
No, but, you know, setting on, you know, an area where there's marine mammals and
Sure.
leaving your gear
Sure.
is just not responsible. So, and it, you know, it brought this issue to light to a lot of people in the community that never experienced this before in a very dramatic way. So
I think
it wasn't a good choice by this fisherman to set right off the town beaches in a bathing area in a highly populated time of the year. It just wasn't a good choice.
I think it would be appropriate for us to reach out to the DEC or National Marine Fisheries or whoever it is that regulates this and express our concern
Yeah.
along the lines that you've just outlined.
Yeah, no, I think we should you know, have a discussion.
Rick and I were in an email conversation earlier this week about this, and you included Fred Thiel, who has reached out to us
Yeah.
about it. He's also
Yeah, we
concerned.
Yeah.
So-
Francis has spoken with Fred Thiel about maybe some additional state regulations.
We'll see.
So, you know, I'd like to keep the conversation going, and, you know, maybe we should involve some members from the local fishing community as well, and make sure their voice is part of this.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, when they, yeah, the fall people seem to be more aware of what they're doing.
Sure.
I'm not sure what prompted this person. I don't think I've ever seen a gill net in the summer.
Not
set
this
up
time
with
of year,
a-
never.
Usually not July.
I was
No,
surprised
yeah.
when I heard it. I'm like,
Yeah.
a gill netter?
Yeah, I've watched the Shinnecock boats set their nets and they set them down the beach and then they come back and pull them.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, it's a regular
The past couple of
routine.
years, they've been leaving them out overnight.
Yeah.
I've noticed that, until maybe when you're there in the morning, you'll see the
Yeah, I
balls
do. I
over
see,
there.
I see
Yeah.
the buoys out there.
It's a little
No boats
surprising.
inside.
So- And if the bunker population continues to grow, which it looks like it's going to with the current regulations, you know, we're gonna see, I think, more mammals staying tight to the beach because the
Right.
bunker are tight to the beach. So it's gonna require, I think, a more thoughtful approach.
Do you know if the, you know, East Hampton off the beach gill netters work in the summer or they just work
I
the
don't think so.
runs?
I think they're doing the pound traps and clamming and stuff mostly. But I don't know. I couldn't speak for them. I don't know.
They
Susan,
don't,
if
right?
you know.
I know they
Yeah,
go in
some
the
of them do.
fall.
my grandfather used to. He would do it.
This time of year?
I know, back in the, you know, in the
But
60s
he
and
would
stuff.
go late afternoon, set the net and go back daylight,
Mhm.
bring it in.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen gill nets in the
In
summer
Shinnecock.
since I was a kid camping at Hither Hills.
Maybe August, but I don't know. Something makes me think August they do. Danny gets out
Usually
there.
the
I don't
run,
know.
yeah, September,
they will.
I think usually the runs kind of kick off after the first hurricane or tropical storm. So, Anyway, it's a tricky conversation. It's a, you know, an emotional conversation in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you know, I've heard people say, oh, it should be banned entirely. I don't think that's really appropriate. I mean, it can be managed around the mammals.
Yeah.
No, but with more and more mammals, then, yeah, there has to be attention paid to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't
Yeah.
ignore it.
Yeah.
Between
Thank you.
seals, I know a lot of people don't like the seals either.
They're competing for the fish.
Right. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
You can ban the seals, regulate the seals.
I think all the seals get like it.
All right, let's go to payment of the bills. Matthews Kirst Cooley, PLLC, $150 was live. Montauk Marine Basin, $167.13. Norwalkie Smith, $8,000 auditor. I want to check on that, because I thought the town paid that. Optimum, $133.53. Ready Fresh, $39.63. Seacoast Enterprises, $676.01. Star Island Yacht Club, $2,066.45. Do we know what that was for? Arlene?
Yes, I didn't realize the new operator, I was checking my phone messages, he had broken the clutch of the steering gear, it says it on the bill. I'm not a mechanic, so I'm gonna use the wrong word. It wasn't going in reverse and forward, it had to be replaced, that's what it was.
The
The
shift
weekend
cable?
before 4th of July weekend, the Friday
So what
before
cable
4th.
cost?
Throttle? Broke the whole throttle system?
Yeah, he made some kind of noise like he'll explain how it happened, but
The
he
shift,
didn't explain how it
Shift
happened.
Your
For a
cable.
cable?
Table the 8,000 and the 2,600 to take a look.
you wanna double
Yeah,
check that
the
one?
bill is
too?
in there if
Yeah.
you wanna look at it.
Yeah.
You wanna double check that one? too?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we pay the bills minus Noraki Smith and Star Island Yacht Club.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes, May 31st, 2019. Anybody have a chance to review them?
I looked at them, I made some comments, I think. I looked at all of them. I make a motion that we accept the minutes, May 31st minutes.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, June 10th?
I looked at those too. I make a motion, we accept those minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
June 24th?
I looked at those as well.
Down again.
Aye.
Same motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
July 8th?
And I looked at
Same
those
thing.
as well. And I make a motion, we accept those, and now we're up to date on the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I have so many minutes to read now.
Financial report for the month ended June 30th.
Well, we tabled it for this week, and I had an opportunity to go through it, and it all looks to be in order, and I would make a motion that we accept the balance sheet dated June 30th, 2019.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and renewal for certificate of deposit ending numbers 5679.
Motion to give the clerk the chance to do that.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, report of the clerk, I don't really have much, but I will tell you that we have a truck coming. Yes. And correspondence, there's a note of appreciation from the East Hampton Historical Farm Museum. As you recall, Brian requested that we make a donation.
I cannot tell you how excited they were that we helped them out, and I told them, it was our pleasure. There's a lot of neat things in that farmhouse, so go
There is.
visit it.
And the barn.
And the barn, yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
And the garden.
Yeah.
And the sundial.
My son is into, he's into astronomy and stuff. He's raving about the sundial.
Yeah,
He said
it's pretty
really
neat.
nice.
It's a pretty neat thing. Yeah.
Anybody have anything else?
No?
Motion.
I'll make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You going on your bike?
You don't want to be riding in the lightning.
You want to check the radar on your bike? Is it right?